Here's some good news about today, New Year's Day, 2018. 18 states are getting minimum wage increases. 18 states. So that's wonderful. Let me show you the chart here. I don't know if you call this a chart or just a list. But now notice some of these are very small increases, but that's because in those states, there's a law where the minimum wage is tied to inflation, so it increases automatically. But let's go ahead and run through it here. Alaska, $9.84 minimum wage. Arizona, $10.50. California, $11. Colorado, $10.20. Florida, $8.25. Hawaii, $10.10. Maine, $10. Michigan, $9.25. Minnesota, $9.65. Missouri, $7.85. Montana, $8.30. New Jersey, $8.60. New York, $10.40. Ohio, $8.30. Rhode Island, $10.10. South Dakota, $8.85. Vermont, $10.50. Washington, $11.50. I think the biggest increase is Maine. So I guess it's moving from $9 to $10. That's the largest increase. Now, again, some of these are because the minimum wage in those states it's tied to inflation. But in the other places where that's not the case, where that's not how they got their minimum wage increase, what's interesting is it was done by ballot initiative. So here's why that fact is very important. That shows when you give people the option to vote on it, it's not even close. Even in, and they go on to explain this, even in deeply conservative states, that's what happens. So even in conservative states, you have a ballot initiative. You ask the people, hey, should there be a minimum wage increase to X amount? And people overwhelmingly go, yes. So what does that tell you? That tells you that this issue is a actual bipartisan issue. Now, everybody knows I'm no fan of the bullshit bipartisanship that happens in Washington, where the only time Democrats and Republicans agree is to screw over regular people and keep serving Wall Street and their donors. That's the kind of bipartisanship you usually get in Washington. The kind of bipartisanship that actually makes sense is the bipartisanship among average Joes, where, you know, a regular Republican dude in Kentucky and a regular Democratic woman in New York go, hey, should there be a living wage? Well, yeah, where the fuck's the debate with that one? We want to have wage slavery as an official policy? That's crazy. Over 80% of the American people want to raise the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage. So this is an issue where, and by the way, this is why Bernie Sanders goes to West Virginia and gets standing ovations when he argues for a living wage and free college and Medicare for all and a New Deal. He was in a room full of West Virginia Trump voters and got rousing applause when he argued for those things. Why? Because people agree with those things. And again, when you put it on a ballot, these are the results. So now some states, the Koch brothers and other Republican donors have bought the Republican politicians, and they've done what's called preemption laws, where they not only do they go against a minimum wage increase, but they pass laws that say, we're not even going to let you raise it in the future. So we're effectively banning any further minimum wage increases. See, this is what the right-wing agenda is. This is what the politicians and the donors are doing. They're trying to screw over not only Democratic voters, but their own voters. That's what that is. They're trying to screw over their own voters who disagree with them. So I just want everybody to understand the game that's being played. And what this shows is the more we have ballot initiatives, the more you're going to get a populist left agenda implemented. Because it's not just Democrats, it's also Republicans. Average Joe Republicans who, when you give them the direct issue, oftentimes they're left-wing. This is a point that Noam Chomsky's made for a long time. Although there are disagreements on social issues, for example. Your average Joe Republican against abortion. Your average Joe Democrat for abortion. So I'm not saying there's no differences. Of course there are differences. But the area where they all agree, economic populism. And this is further evidence of it here. When you put it up for ballot initiative, raising the minimum wage, even in red states, it passes. So the number of workers that this helps, $4.5 million. Now, again, we might look at this and go, okay, but really, a fucking 4-cent increase in Alaska or a 15-cent increase in Minnesota? We're going to get, like, really excited about that? Well, number one, when you're making that much money, every cent counts. Every cent helps. There's no doubt about that. But number two, we should be doing Fight for 15 anyway. So, yes, these are good things. I'm happy that this is happening, but we ain't going to lay down. We're going to keep fighting, and we want Fight for 15 to win, and it's time for that blue wave. But I wouldn't scoff at it, even though it's not that much of an increase in many of the states and all that stuff. It's nothing to scoff at. And even though it's sad that it's this little of an increase and these people still don't have a living wage, we fight on. We fight on until we get a living wage across the country, because that's the only answer. And we already have everybody on our side. So it's just a matter of having the establishment hear us roar, and then we win.